Kyle Senra. Glad to be joined by Gladys. And damn, there's Dan. How are you both doing?
Doing good. Hanging in there. Better than Dan.
We're in much better health than most of the NFL.
Yes, and it's really saying not much.
I actually have a cold, and in case I was going to get put on the IR for the next 3 weeks, I thought I'd show up tonight. So we're good.
Yeah, we really need you to help carry us.
You got the nasal today. It's okay. We'll get through.
Moving up from the nasal to the brain. Before we get into the show, did want to mention one thing. Lots of injury losses in the fantasy football community to players, but more serious, certainly. We lost one of our own fantasy analyst, James Catulus, otherwise known as James the Brain. You may know him from the Superflex Super Show. Unfortunately, passed this weekend. James is a great guy, so it's a huge loss to humanity in general, not just our community, but for anyone who wants to, sudden death, expenses are there for family. If anyone wants to support that, John Hogue, who was one of James' co-hosts, he set up a link to help if you want to contribute. So John Hogue at Superflex Dude on Twitter. So thank you all for letting us talk about that. Again, James meant something to me, so I felt I really needed to talk about it. I don't know if either of you two listen to the pod or have ever interacted with James or wanted to say anything, but this is the chance.
I unfortunately didn't know him personally, but I had seen him on a couple podcasts. And anytime you lose anyone to anything, it's not only emotionally draining, but like you said, for the GoFundMe page, it's a financial drain that you don't really think about. And so his family, I'm almost positive, would appreciate any help, like even for a cup of coffee, like $2 or whatever. It all adds up. And Kyle, I'm sorry for your loss. Deeply, deeply sorry.
I'm not sure I can add much on to that, but condolences to him, his family, and for those in the fantasy community. He has provided a stack of content and helped a lot of people along the way, and it's a shame and it's horrible. So please reach out to John, find his Twitter. What was it, at John Hogue, Superflex Dude, and go from there.
Yep, exactly. Anyway, so we'll move on from there. Thank you, everyone. I just, felt the need to make that touching tribute. Thanks for indulging me, the both of you. Kind words, and I'm sure if James's family and friends are listening, I'm sure they appreciated that. But moving on to what we already referred to, injuries. And normally we were going to do the waiver wire after reacting to player production, but this week seemed especially necessary to maybe talk about these waiver wires, because most of them were going to have to do with injuries. So, Dan, you put a carefully constructed list together of injured players. It's probably not complete. There's probably more on there. So what we got? Saquon Barkley.
Everyone.
Tore. I would say tore his ACL, but tore everything, it seemed like, in his knee. So that's going to be bad.
I think, in the words of the Crow, they're all dead. They just don't know it yet. I think everyone is cooked after that. Sutton's down, McCaffrey's down. Obviously, Michael Thomas, he's going to miss this week. Devontae Adams is another one. There are a lot of guys that are cooked. You add into it Drew Lock, starting quarterback. Obviously, Superflex 2QB considerations. And Jimmy Garoppolo can miss some time. I know he tried to run it off as well. But then you think about Sterling Shepard, turf toe. That's horrible, right? Because people always try to get back out early on turf toe. It never works. Cam Akers, Devontae Adams, Brashad Perryman on a lesser extent. Raheem Mostert's now an MCL, so that's not too bad. He should be back sooner than you think. But I think I said Paris Campbell as well, but that's a lot of people in one hit on a Sunday afternoon. And obviously there's a lot of repercussion for those who get hurt and get injured and whatnot. So
I just saw that Tevin Coleman is out too.
Tevin Coleman's out as well?
Yeah.
He was never in. But I guess it's Jared Coleman time and Kyle's guy, JaMychal Hasty. And who's the other guy?
Well, to be honest, expect to see him activated to the active roster in all seriousness this week, because he was he was their practice squad. So down 2 running backs, I think he's definitely getting at least promoted. And
Jeff Wilson had viable weeks as well. Like he came out and punched out some big numbers on the goal line at certain points last year as well, when they were kind of fumbling between Mostert and Breida and Coleman.
It was especially when Coleman was out, because it seemed like Coleman was the guy they really wanted to be the goal line back. So now that he's out, it's Jeff Wilson.
Jeff Wilson's another name to monitor during the week to see how they go, and they don't have to travel too far. The Niners, obviously, all that happened at the Jets this week. They play the Giants at the same stadium, so they're not in their own medical facility. I don't think. I don't know if they would have flown back to San Fran 6 hours just to fly back the next week, but they play the Giants at New York in the same time span, so in the same week. So, we'll see how they manage. We'll see how they manage that.
They have to fly back. Like they can't. Teams can no longer stay on the coast. They have to go back to their home. So they have to fly back and fly in. And I read something, and it was probably just a blurb, where Shanahan was considering, because it's the same turf, and he felt it was the turf that was the main cause of their injury, that even if Garoppolo was ready to play, he might sit him, even if, not Coleman out, but were ready to play, that he might sit some of the major guys. A, it's because it's the Giants. No disrespect there, Dan. And B, because it was the same turf, and he doesn't want his main players getting hurt again.
So just to clarify, Gladys, was the severity on Coleman's injury mentioned in what you saw? Is like obviously out for the week, or is he out like season?
I think no, I don't think it's season. I think it was like 2 to 6 weeks. But
Coleman.
All right.
Coleman.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I hadn't seen anything about the exact time frame. But what was the injury anyway? I wasn't really paying attention to the 49ers Jets game.
I don't know that it was.
Neither were the Jets.
Knee injury he suffered Sunday. Multiple weeks.
Yeah, not to laugh. Knee injury. But that was a good joke, Dan. Okay. So I guess where to begin from all this? So Barkley's out for the season, so I feel like everyone's going to be rushing to maybe get Dion Lewis, maybe get Wayne Gallman. Apparently, is Devontae Freeman signing? I don't know if that's actually happening. That it was a rumor that was kind of announced. Truthfully, behind that offensive line, I'd actually just avoid all those running backs. The only reason that we were that highly invested on Barkley is because his pass catching ability, because he was going to get every single snap, every goal line opportunity, all the best touches. Dion Lewis, I think Dion Lewis they kind of forced he was the goal line back after Barkley left. I believe he got a carry inside the 5 because somehow the Giants actually got in the red zone.
Yeah, last year while Saquon was out with the high ankle, it was Wayne Gallman. And Gallman looked really good I think he played 1 or 2 weeks before he got hurt. And he looked solid when he did. You're probably avoiding both. And that's, or anyone. Like, I'm not sure Devontae Freeman moves the needle on either of them. Like, he's proven and all that sort of thing, but so is Dion Lewis. And I don't think you're really going to go out and spend fab on Devontae Freeman, or I think you're better off just letting that one slide through and seeing what else is available, because I know everyone's looking for a starting running back, but the way week 2 went, there will be plenty more next week the way that it's going. But, as the Giants, as one of our resident Giants fans, look, he did nothing against Pittsburgh. He was struggling against Chicago. You were banking, as you said, on the receptions, and even still that didn't. We look at the knee, but you got to remember he was out the play before because he hurt his elbow. It looked like he hyperextended his elbow a play or two before. So he might have been missing time anyway if that hadn't have progressed as the game went on. So, that's you're probably avoiding all of them. Wayne Gallman, if you had to pick one, Wayne Gallman for me. I think he's the guy, but.
I actually think if Freeman signs, actually, you know what? Dion Lewis is catching the passes. It's probably Dion Lewis. You know what? Avoid them all. Yeah. I think much smarter to invest in Mike Davis for the Panthers. I think he, that offensive line is not that great, but I feel like he's probably in a better situation than all of them. He's going to be probably a workhorse close to it. Maybe not. Maybe Matt Rule does kind of go by committee and Jordan Scarlett gets play, but what kind of fab money are you both willing to put on Michael Davis? So I want to give some perspective. Last week, I spent 42% of my budget on Peyton Barber. I only did it in one league, and it's a 14-team league. Some for me, big money on it, and I really needed a running back. And so that I kind of forced the issue there. Don't put 42% on anybody, really, but definitely not Peyton Barber. But what kind of range is you looking at Mike Davis for Fab?
Like we discussed earlier, I personally don't see going above. Okay, it's the second week, and I understand that you might need a running back now that Saquon, if we're talking about Saquon, and Saquon's out, if you have your number one running back out. But it's a 14-week, it's your 14 weeks, and the way people are falling, who knows? The guy you spend 42% on can go down next week, and what are you going to do? I wouldn't go above 10%.
Or get one carry, and it is the clear number 3.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that spending that much, it's like a panic. And people need to stop panicking. It's like week 2, and people are falling. So for all of us who drafted late and didn't get any of the big name players, yay, we're doing okay. But don't go spend more than 10, 15% on someone. There's no one that good out there.
I think there also has to be a separation of circumstance as well. We're looking at them both as one and the same. Mike Davis is probably in the better situation, but his circumstance could change in the next 3 to 4 weeks if McCaffrey comes back. Barkley isn't returning. So the separation there is one season ending, and despite, and I 100% agree with you, Gladys, you don't want to go bombing 40, 50% on a guy who's going to lose his job to the 101 in a month, right? And they,
right.
You don't know. Like, I don't even know if Reggie Bonifon was active or inactive this week. If he was inactive last week, he becomes active this week. That 42% you spent on Mike Davis might become irrelevant if Reggie Bonifon taps into that work too. So I think the separation there is one is out for the season, one is temporary. And if you need the temporary fix, you're probably leaning more on Mike Davis. If you're looking for the long-term fix, I don't want to say you're relying on a Giants running back, but maybe you're looking at someone else. There's probably a good chance someone like Jamal Williams is out there as well. If you're looking for that temporary without Devontae Adams, he's a guy that you could keep an eye on too. I'd probably rather him over a Giants back, and keep your fingers crossed the same week.
I agree.
Because we saw specifically to Devontae Adams, we saw from the Packers last year, unless it was Oakland and that secondary was just ripe for the picking, they were just going to throw to the running back more often than throw more targets to wide receivers. Okay, first comment. Is Miles Sanders better than Kenyon Drake? So Dan Turner from Going for Two. So what do you both think?
I think...
Is Kenyon Drake going to see this?
Really bad offensive lines. I think I would go Miles Sanders just because I trust him more than Kenyon Drake. And I think that Kenyon Drake is going to get the short end of the stick there in that. And yeah, I think Miles Sanders is going to get more carries. Kenyon Drake is like an afterthought now.
Cliff Kingsbury's already starting to really enforce Chase Edmonds in terms of passing down work as well. He was fairly active in week 1. He had a few goes in week 2. I'm not particularly a Kenyon Drake person at the best of times. He's a talented guy, but it's the same circumstances you continually hear. Like, he had Adam Gase and they traded for him. It's a bad. He's fine for what he is. If in a nutshell, if I was sitting there and I had to pick between one of the two at the start of the year, it was Miles Sanders. It wasn't even close. Week 3, it's Miles Sanders, and it's still not very close. Drake's fine. He's good for that system, but we've seen what they want to do with Hopkins and everything else. And, Hopkins has worked out better than anyone kind of thought. And Sanders is going to grow into a role more and more as the weeks go on. I can't imagine anything else. Is he better? Yes.
Yeah, I think we take pure athletic talent. I think we're definitely taking Sanders. As much as I'm a huge Kenyon Drake fan, I'm not going to sit here and say that. I mean, Sanders, which he totally destroyed the combine and kind of vaulted himself up to be that number 2 running back. I know Josh Jacobs ultimately ended up being that first round running back that year, but Sanders really vaulted himself to be that number 2 guy when we were all maybe expecting David Montgomery, or I was expecting Justice Hill, which that was obviously crazy. We'll never talk about that again. But I will want to talk about something Gladys said. Offensive line. especially for running backs. It is important. Right now, and again, we're 2 weeks in, so do take this a slight grain of salt in terms of how much data we have. But Football Outsiders always like going to their offensive line metrics to grade because they do separate run blocking and pass protection. Their adjusted line rate is they have Arizona at 3.5 yards and Philly at 3.06. That ranks number 22 for Arizona, number 26 for Philly. So these are bottom half of the league offensive lines. The thing with Philly, though, 26th in run blocking, but 31st in pass protection. That almost helps Sanders because suddenly more dump offs. As a rookie, saw I think it was 63 targets. So I think he's more locked into that pass catching volume. And Dan already mentioned it. Chase Edmonds, he's a legit talent. I trust him more than I trust any of the backups in Philly, and I do like Boston Scott, but not over Chase Edmonds. I think.
I think the other thing to look at with that as well. I don't think Arizona's had the disruption on their offensive line at the start of the season as much as what Philadelphia had, who lost their starting left tackle, what was it, about 6 weeks prior to the season starting. They had, was it Peters? Peters was moved, Jason Peters was moved to right guard. That's where he thought he was going. They shifted him back to left tackle. Lane Johnson misses week 1. They were in all sorts of problems. This shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, the talent, Philly's line, when healthy, speaks for itself. They're fantastic generally. But they were taking a beating before the season started. They were behind the 8 ball. So
and they lost the guard yesterday too.
Yeah, and let's face it. Arizona have the cheat code with Kyler Murray. He gets away a little bit more frequently than what Carson Wentz does. He likes to hold it a little bit more and make a surgical play. He hasn't been allowed that luxury this year so far.
So one thing, while we actually do have another question from Sean Sullivan, another one of our going for 2 brethren, and Fournette's outlook moving forward. You want to touch on that?
I don't know if Rojo stopped getting touches because of the fumble, which I kind of think that was what happened, that he was got put in the doghouse. Yeah. But I do think that as Fournette becomes more familiar with Tampa Bay's offense, how it's running, that if it's not going to be a 50-50 share, it's going to be a 60-40 with Fournette getting the goal line carries. I think that for sure he will be their goal line back. I would start him. I didn't yesterday, but it's all right. Self-imposed misery. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but Fournette, I think in our going for 2 rankings, I had him as maybe obviously he was in Jacksonville at the time. I think I had him like a top 6, top 7 running back. I'm a Leonard Fournette fan. That receiving work he had last year in Jacksonville was what was he, the number 2 receiver as well in Jacksonville last year? And obviously they're a different story now, but he does everything that they needed Ronald Jones to do now. Like, it's not hey, let's see if he can still pass protect or if it's gotten better. No, it's not, hey, Ronald Jones has been working on his hands. No, it's not it. Fournette does that already. He's a competent blocker. He's good with his hands. He is what they want Ronald Jones to be, and unfortunately for Jones and those who invested a 5th or 6th in him, I think it's Fournette's world until otherwise, because you guys would have saw the same thing I did, and that was him and Brady had it out. There was the fumble, the right, and that's it. He's persona non grata again. He's done. So, Fournette comes in and he does the work, and that's it. That's it.
I will say, again, back to offensive line. Looking at Football Outsiders, they have Tampa ranked as 29th in adjusted sack rate. So, again, right down with Philly in terms of how bad that offensive line is. And it kind of makes sense to where the targets went. 10 targets to Mike Evans. Next was LaShawn McCoy with 7, and then Leonard Fournette with 5. So if the pass protection is going to be an issue, and this was against Carolina, this is not a very good defense. So if the pass protection is going to be an issue all year, I mean, that was, I think, there was a few reasons why Fournette got 100 targets last year, but lack of pass protection, I think, was one of them. Kind of Minshew had no choice but to kind of dump off, even though he wanted to check down. Brady, it'll be the same thing. He'll try to get to Evans clearly when Godwin's in there, but outside of that, if the line's breaking down, he's always going to look to his running backs. And I know Ronald Jones got, I think, 41 targets last year, but McCoy and Fournette neither of them were on that team. So I kind of expect that's a role that Jones is certainly going to lose. And again, Fournette only been there 2 weeks, already saw 5 targets, as Dan, I think it was Dan that mentioned it. He's the goal line back. Saw 5 red zone opportunities last week for the Buccaneers, which it led them last week, but it actually leads them through 2 weeks combined.
We're also talking about a team that obviously missed Chris Godwin last week. Gronkowski didn't have a target, I don't think, yesterday either. So I'm sure as
one target, but he didn't catch it.
So I mean, I'm sure as the season goes on, that will eventuate. I'm sure they will find ways to work him in. You've got OJ Howard as well. Scotty Miller seems to be a thing. He had a terrible drop in the end zone. Right between his hands, he should have had it. Justin Watson's a thing too. So like, if the premise of receiving work for Ronald Jones was something 2 weeks ago we were looking at, it's with Fournette, that's cooked. That's cooked, I think.
So one last question, and again, this is doubling back to talking about the injuries again. Paris Campbell was a player. Not sure how in detail we went about it, but I believe it's a PCL injury, and they said out indefinitely. So at this point, no timetable for his return. That's never a good look. It obviously means they need more information before they can determine something, but it's if it that's kind of a scary thought. He's seeing that indefinite. So I think the main beneficiaries of that are going to be Michael Pittman and Zach Pascal. Michael Pittman led the team in snaps last week from the wide receivers as his second game in the NFL. So I wonder. I think 7% fab on either could probably win them. To be honest, going with Gladys mentioning with her number. Are there those players? Someone you're willing to spend that will say 7%?
In Indianapolis, with Phillip Rivers under center, no. I would spend more on a tight end, Mo Alley Cox, because that's what Rivers likes. Or I would spend more on, I would say Naheem Hines, but Jonathan Taylor's taken that over. So Mo Alley Cox would be the only one I would spend 7% maybe to get if Jack Doyle is still out, because I think that's what Rivers prefers.
And to that credit, if someone dropped Jack Doyle because he's out, maybe that's someone you actually go pick up and hope that he comes back soon. Okay. I'm also kind of hoping that maybe Jacoby Brissett gets back in, because a little bit of a rant here. I think Jacoby Brissett before his knee injury last year looked much better than Rivers does now. And so I think he kind of got shafted because he played poorly at the end of the year, but I think that was mostly the knee injury. Like, his throw velocity wasn't there. He really couldn't put anything into those throws. And I think they kind of just said, oh, no, you played bad. But he played bad because he got hurt. Again, the knee. So I think, I don't know. And I also have Brissett in one of my favorite leagues on a 4-year contract. It's fairly expensive for a backup. So it's part of me trying to justify that, maybe the flip. But truthfully, though, I mean, glad I said it. Rivers is not playing well. Yeah,
he's still a turnover machine. He was his last season in San Diego. He hasn't really. I mean, I think that it was the familiarity he has with both the offensive coordinator and Reich that's why he's there for that 1 year.
I think I'd also like to say at this point, this is a guy that's going to go and throw for 250 yards a week and 1 touchdown. And 1 intercept. That's what Rivers is at this point. 2 if you're lucky, and you're looking at a place where T.Y. Hilton isn't really doing much either. Mm-hmm. If you're the Colts, and this is on a completely different tangent, I guess, but if you've brought in Phillip Rivers because you think you can go off and do something, make some noise, and look, Houston have been rattled the first 2 weeks. The Jags and Titans will be up and down. They will. But why not?
I disagree about the Titans, but okay.
No, they look good, but I mean, Jacksonville still put 30 on them.
Yep, that's true. So, that's supposed to be an impressive defense. You're right.
Right, so it's not. I mean, Ryan Tannehill's another. He has continued. He looks fantastic. But if you're the Colts and you've brought in Phillip Rivers because you think in the next 12 months, 2 years max, that you can make a run, at this point, to me, draft picks mean nothing. Go get Allen Robinson. Go get that guy. You need a guy who can move like Keenan Allen, that's going to play like that can run those routes, who's smooth and quick and can go up and get it. That, to me, would make sense. I think that would be a good fit. And, I think that would work for Robinson too. And Chicago obviously need more capital to build up because I don't think they're moving forward with Trubisky or Foles. So I look at how the Colts are shaped and like T.Y. Hilton's doing nothing. Jack Doyle's always hurt. I love the Mo Alley Cox call. That is a fantastic play because Trey Burton is just useless. Paris Campbell, a PCL, that guy can't stop. He can't jump without pain. Zach Pascal is just a name. Look, Michael Pittman they brought in. That's great. Cool. Until he does something, that's fine. Like, you've also got Fountain, I think, was on their practice squad, and Ashton Doolan. They're just names at this point. If they're seriously about to make a run at something with Rivers because they think they can, that group of players aren't going to be it. They will not cut the mustard on this. They won't. They won't get anywhere. They'll be an 8-8 team, and they've paid $20 million for Phillip Rivers for nothing. They could have had Jameis for much cheaper and had something done.
I don't know about that. I'm thinking Cam Newton.
They could have had Cam Newton.
They could have had Cam Newton for half the price because no one else is paying him that. Right?
Why not? One of the other.
They had the money. They still have tons of cap space. They could have paid Cam Newton $25 million and it wouldn't have mattered, right? So
the biggest knock on Jacoby Brissett was that they were too slow. But you brought in Phillip Rivers, who is slow. Like, he's in no rush except for those last 4 minutes when he's freaking out and he's chucking it to anyone other than his teammates.
Yeah. That's
what they are. So if you are thinking that you're going to make a run, go get Allen Robinson because he's made it clear that unless he doesn't have a deal, like Chicago have done nothing within the last 2 weeks. Nothing. Like, so there's more going on that. Like,
and they've won both games. So
yeah, I mean, they beat the Lions and the Giants,
who apparently are. Someone mentioned this the other day that the Lions pulled the Falcons and blew the lead. And I almost thought that's almost insulting to the Falcons because the Lions do this all the time. The Falcons only do it when they're up by 40. But they don't regularly blow 10-point leads. They don't seem to get 10-point leads that often.
I said it last week, and I said it with one of the articles I wrote this off season. They still play Carolina. They have a soft schedule. The Bears. They're going to go 3-3, 4-2, and that's with Trubisky. So the ends could justify the means. That kid could end up getting extended before you know it. They could literally be 4-2, 5-1. That is, I know as a Packers fan.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to see that.
I get it, but like, they aren't going to bring in Foles with a positive record. They never were. So, at this point, like, they're a chance to do something, and they're not using Robinson. You're right. They could cash him in, get something for him to a team that actually needs a receiver, like, now, because what they have is not going to work. I understand the hype with Doyle because Rivers and tight ends. Cox shown it this week. T.Y. Hilton's meant to be this guy. They aren't using him. Like, it's just not happening. All the hype behind Pittman is not done much. Zach Pascal's the guy, and he's there because Campbell went out. That's it. They got to make a move now. That'll be the guy. Go get him.
All right, let's stick to the AFC South. Let's actually get to some of these recaps now. So, Titans, as we mentioned, beat the Jags 33-30. Talk about best and worst players. I put both quarterbacks in this range. In my weekly rankings, I had both in my top 20, but I think I had Minshew at 15 and Tannehill 17, 18. They were both top 10 quarterbacks last week, so they obviously outperformed that. I think that was kind of the one thing I was looking for in terms of best performers, because a lot of the quarterbacks that played well this week were the ones we predicted. It was the shootout matchups: Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott with all the rushing touchdowns, Aaron Rodgers again against the Lions. Well,
Kyler Murray, Cam Newton, Dak Prescott.
Exactly. So it was to find someone who, we're top 10 quarterbacks this week, but kind of outside those ranks. I think that's why I wanted to highlight those two. We've got Buccaneers won 31-17. I think Dan emphatically talking about two players here because it's all caps.
Yeah, I mean, Leonard Fournette is that guy. Mike Evans, he came out, didn't he? He showed that he could actually run a route. Isn't that funny? He didn't jump and land. He actually ran on one. It was I was watching it play. He had like this one beautiful play. I was like, I've never seen him run before. So it was incredible to see. It was like just a galloping gazelle. It was fantastic, but I'd never seen it. Evans without Godwin, we saw what he could do. He looked really good. Brady found them. Again, that could have been a bit more blown out. Scotty Miller, again, Brady couldn't have put it in a better spot, went right between his hands. That could have been a higher score than what we know.
And I mean, I did put Brady in like some of the worst fantasy performances because he didn't play well. He scored single digit fantasy points against a Carolina defense that I know I was expecting him to, light them up, whether it was through Mike Evans. I was also really disappointed in OJ Howard, but yeah, I mean, not necessarily all Brady's fault. Talked about the offensive line, how poor that protection has been. Talked about Scotty Miller dropping pass. So, it's factors, but at the end of the day, he didn't produce. So I put Tom Brady there. Rams beat the Eagles 39. Oh, wait, sorry. Missed the Steelers game. Don't get mad at me, Gladys. 26-21. They beat the Broncos. Do you have anything to say about the game, Gladys?
No. I mean, the Steelers were lucky to get away with that win. They were lucky. It's honestly, Drew Lock, the quarterback that they prepare for goes out. Jeff Driscoll comes in. He has a 15%. They're sacking him. Without the defense, the Steelers would have lost that game. Jeff Driscoll was under pressure. I think it was like a 15% sack rate that he had. If Terrell Edmonds did not sack him on that fourth down on the Pittsburgh 15, I do believe the Broncos would have come away with the win. So for best player, I said James Conner only because I think the expectations for him this week were so low, and he ended up getting over 100 rushing yards and a touchdown. But it was the defense that was the best. Without the defense, Roethlisberger was Roethlisberger. He had 300 yards, but he also had 2 really bad turnovers. I was disappointed in the Steelers in that game.
I actually played Peyton Barber over James Conner in the league. Not the same league I spent 42% of my budget on. I had Barber in another league after, but yeah, that was and it would have made the difference. I lost that week, and I mean, I think I put up the second highest points of the league. Every other guy in my lineup hit, but Peyton Barber 0.1 point or something, and James Conner, whatever, I think it was 20 something, maybe even 30 points. That was don't ever play Peyton Barber over James Conner. Anybody? I don't know if anyone else needed to hear that, but apparently I did. So
Deontay Johnson's had 23 targets in 2 games. That's something to know as well. He's been obviously the muff punt in week 1. To start the season wasn't a good start, but that guy,
just don't play him on punts. Just throw him the football.
He is going to be. The longer the season goes, people are going to wake up to him, I think.
But I think that also, if you were going to spend money on a wide receiver, I would spend maybe 4% Chase Claypool because Roethlisberger is trying to get him in there.
Big plays.
He only had 3 targets, but he's on the field for 60% of the snaps. They want him in there. So
also, does the Mapletron thing stick? I know in Canada we use that often for him because he is a Canadian boy. I don't know if it's caught on in the States down below.
I don't even know what that is.
Mapletron, because Claypool he's kind of like Megatron, but the Canadian version. So Mapletron.
Yeah, no.
No, it doesn't. Okay, so it is just us in Canada talking about that. Okay, good to know. So, this is the U.S. premiere of Mapletron's nickname. So, everyone who's watching this will be, I would say, enlightened, but maybe not. Maybe they actually got dumber for me saying that. So, moving on, Rams and Eagles, 31-19. Someone scored 3 touchdowns. Who was that, Dan?
Philly still sucks, so it doesn't matter. Tyler Higbee, 3 touchdowns. And when you think about it as well, the woeful football team had Logan Thomas score on them as well. So going forward, play your tight ends against the Eagles because they can't stop them for nothing. So, which is great because, good. I don't care.
They're the new Cardinals, which are also birds. So
they're just overrated, and that's fine too. But, you see, Robert Woods? He had another jet sweep, I think it was, and he went around and did his work. Darrell Henderson, he carved them up too. So, there wasn't much that Philadelphia could do to stop them, which again was great because nothing makes me happier. But at the same time, Tyler Higbee was just, I think we're all skeptical about taking tight ends in those mid rounds. And he was around that 8th, 9th, 10th round. And generally that's the cesspool for tight ends that do nothing because those guys are generally the ones that are replaceable. He has absolutely taken his form from 2019 and moved forward with it. He looks untouchable at times. And he was untouchable. Philly didn't get near him, which was also again, very good. But Higbee was fantastic, and I don't see Jared Goff stopping that partnership down.
49ers beat the Jets 31-13. I don't think any analysis is needed. Moving on. Mostly, well, we also talked about all the injuries, so that's mostly what came of that game. Bills, tight one, 31-28, kind of close at the end. A lot of standout fantasy players in this. Stephon Diggs, actually, I think right now is the number one scoring fantasy wide receiver in half-point PPR formats, which I didn't see coming. I thought this would be a run-heavy game for Buffalo, and I mean, I don't have Diggs on any of my teams, but I don't know if I would have been all that excited to start him. But clearly I was wrong. So I think that's part of it too. If I was low on a player and they perform well, I'm going to highlight them extra. Same thing with Mike Gesicki. I thought, okay, I had him maybe tight end 16, 17, which is lower than, season long rankings before the season. I had him in the top 8, I think. So I definitely liked Gesicki. I just thought this was not a great week against that defense. Although thinking about it, since the corners are so well, the tight end would be the place to exploit it. But I just didn't think the Dolphins would get in the red zone and give him the opportunity to score. But is the number one tight end right now. Worst performance though, Preston Williams. And you told me he got one catch for 26 yards, and I didn't know Parker played. I would have thought, okay, yeah, Tre'Davious White shut him down. That makes sense. Parker played, and I didn't really. It seemed like White was on Parker a lot more than Williams. So for Williams to go 1 for 5, one catch for 5 targets, that's pretty disappointing to me. I thought would have probably had the better game than Parker, just considering he was healthy and didn't see Tre'Davious White. So, yeah. I would say you could drop Preston Williams because that's what he did.
I'll say this like I did last week. I'll say it again like I did all off season. Sunrise, sunset. John Brown, 75 yards and a touchdown. Every time. Every time. John Brown, the most underrated receiver in the league. He has not taken a backward step with the arrival of Stephon Diggs. He's just going to keep going. He's the ultimate wide receiver 3 play every week.
So you would play John Brown over Stephon Diggs, you're saying?
No.
Oh, I would.
No.
Not anymore. I would have before this game, just because Diggs. Well, because Brown outscored Diggs week 1, so I had Brown ranked higher than Diggs this week going into this week. But I think Diggs showed it. I think he's gotten the chemistry with Allen, so I think
Diggs is helping Brown and vice versa.
Yeah, they're both maybe not every week starters, but in good matchups. They should be fine against defenses they can exploit like this. They should both be starters.
I have zero problems starting John Brown every week. You can. 3 wide receiver setups. Yep. And he's a flex consideration every week for me.
With so many running backs hurt, a lot of teams will probably be flexing wide receivers more than running backs, at least in these next few weeks.
The thing is, you also know Josh Allen's not going to poach any touchdowns from him on the goal line either, right? So, Josh Allen's going to do his thing on the goal line. It's not that. That's not the problem. If he's going to throw it, it's Diggs or Brown. That's it. So, if Josh Allen's going to improve that his throwing numbers, it's going to help Brown and Diggs in the end for me.
All right, next game. Colts 28, Vikings 11. Again, NFC North. Packers fan love to see the Vikings lose, especially to an AFC team. So I know it doesn't hurt the Packers' playoff chances. I think the biggest takeaway from this was all the injuries, but Minnesota against a Colts team that the Jags of all teams exploited defensively. I was surprised the Vikings only mustered 11 points, to be honest. I thought Dalvin Cook would have a much better game than this. Adam Thielen was shut down after scoring a touchdown on Jair Alexander. Malik Hooker is probably the best defensive back the Colts have, and I didn't know that he was necessarily going to shadow Thielen, but yeah, I think it was 3 catches for just over 30 yards. So Thielen could have been easily if not for Preston Williams, maybe it could have been the worst wide receiver performance.
There was a stat that said that Minnesota had 4 offensive plays the second half. 4, the entire second half, which I'm not sure it's happening there, but I played in the Scott Fish Bowl. I played Kirk Cousins over Ryan Tannehill, and Cousins had negative 19 points. That was his points. Yeah. He sucked. He was trash.
It's funny that you say that because one of our listeners, Izzy Ortiz, says exactly that.
It was painful. And I mean, it wasn't like it's against the Colts. It's not like he was playing a defense the Colts are good. Their front 7 is adequate, but come on. 4 plays the second half, that's ridiculous.
Yep.
I hate you. Just want you to know that.
Yeah, time of possession. I mean, I know the Packers killed them time of possession wise the first half of the game, and so I know for the Packers, I think it was Kenny Clark getting hurt, and then suddenly the Vikings were able to exploit that. I guess DeForest Buckner was too much for them to overcome in the middle. Where's that offensive line? That offensive line can't rank too highly. Actually, they're number one in adjusted line yards. When was this updated? I don't think this counts for. Okay, these numbers haven't put up week 2 numbers yet. Okay, this is all from week 1. Okay, so disregard everything I said offensive line wise. Moving on, Packers Lions, another NFC North team. Wow, I'm really on a roll today. Packers win 42-21. Yay! Aaron Jones was a beast. Which, to be fair, considering the Lions' pass rush, I actually felt the Packers would try to approach this in a more run heavy way than what they did against the Vikings. And I mean, to be fair, they pretty much neutralized any pass rush the Lions had anyway, so that didn't really matter. I thought the offensive line played amazing for the Packers, really, and Jones was a big beneficiary on his touchdown. The entire left side of the line just cleared out a massive hole for him, which that left side of David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Corey Linsley, that's going to do that a lot of plays. And I think he probably had the most key play of the game. When it was still kind of in question in the third quarter, after his big long touchdown on the next drive, he went up and caught a 30-yard pass covered by a DB on the outside. He had to jump for it, turn around, went up, got it. Looked like there's not wide receivers will not make that play. There's not a lot of receivers that will, and he did, and he's done it before, and it tilted the field field game there, and it was the next drive after where even though the Packers didn't score and they punted, that was the drive they got the pick 6 on. So huge key play to the game, and I think Jones right now is the highest scoring, at least running back this week. And I'm disappointed in Adrian Peterson, someone who unfortunately I've known to tear up the Packers defense often. I figured he'd score a touchdown, get a lot of big yards. Kerryon Johnson gets the touchdown. I started Swift and Peterson every league I had them. I didn't have any Kerryon Johnson this year. I thought, nah, Swift's taking over. Then Kerryon gets the touchdown. That was really frustrating. Actually, I was really upset when it was 14-3 and Kerryon Johnson had a touchdown. It was not a good mood. So I'm good moving on the game and getting away from those negative memories, unless someone wants to say anything.
Yeah.
Cowboys win 40-39.
That was a brutal game. It's just, I think Atlanta wants to find ways to lose. Just, what was it? Andre Agassi who said, any publicity is good publicity as long as someone's talking about you. So Atlanta's like under that little umbrella right now because you watch an onside kick and you're just looking at it. Like that whole special team should just not have a job today.
Especially because they called a timeout right before. So guarantee they would have discussed stuff like that.
Or you should have.
Or that coach staff really doesn't know what they're doing. I guess the only real question now is who's getting fired first, Dan Quinn or Adam Gase?
Maybe both at the same time would be great. Matt Patricia should be in that talking too.
I say keep Matt Patricia forever, but that's my bias.
Do you know that Julio was only targeted 4 times in that game? He only had
so that's not even on the defense. That's I know he was dealing with a bit of an injury. I mean, it didn't seem like he was ever going to miss the game, but I don't know. Still, though, if he was out there healthy, because he played 80% of the snaps, I think.
And then he dropped Gage's pass in the end zone. He just wasn't. It was a non-Julio day. I don't have any
Actually,
Julio in any of my leagues.
Gage did play more than Julio, but it was 83% of the snaps to 79%. So Julio, again, he's still out there for most of the game. So if he really was hurt, they probably wouldn't have played him that much, especially since they were up by so much.
I think that is
on the waiver wire.
I know it's Atlanta, but I think that is the sort of game that Dak Prescott's agent is going to throw at Jerry Jones at the end of the year and say, I just pulled that out for you again. At no point, I got to live in Dallas for a few years, and I know how most of the people there feel about Dak. At no point during that game did I not think he could do that. He has that, I'm going to take this team, put it on my back, and drag them out of this mud hole. He has that in him. He's for what it's worth, I still think Dak Prescott is extremely underrated. I thought with Tyron Smith being out, he might have been in a bit more trouble because he generally is. He was ridiculous. He willed them to a win. Pretty much. I know Zeke did well too, but he wanted it, and that's a guy that you want leading your team every week. And I still cannot believe they haven't paid him.
I can. It's Jerry Jones.
Sure, but they've paid worse players, and that's the thing that.
Yes,
they fight for guys who have been on like suspension lists, but they haven't fought. Yeah, David Irving, he quit because he couldn't smoke weed anymore. I think it was. They brought back Alden Smith. They continue to persist with other guys.
Gregory.
And yet a guy that is actually running your team every single week and willing them to victories like that, they still haven't paid him. It is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. I cannot believe they haven't paid that guy yet.
Yeah.
I do think... I wonder if
where was Amari Cooper? They gave him $100 million, right? Where was he?
I just wonder, knowing that when they paid Amari Cooper, they didn't know they were getting CeeDee Lamb 17th overall. I wonder if they regret that contract now, knowing that they'd be fine with if Gallup and CeeDee. I think they'd be okay with that, and that money could have been used to Dak instead. You could have maybe, instead of franchising Dak, probably franchise Cooper.
It's not like when they weren't signing Amari Cooper, they didn't know that they still couldn't sign Dak Prescott. They knew they still had to. Yeah. Right? It's not like that issue wasn't going away during either negotiation.
Yeah.
That was still happening. And, like Zeke Elliott was in Cabo last year when he was negotiating his. He wasn't going to turn up to camp. They gave him an 8-year ridiculous deal for a running back. And when they did that, they still didn't pay Dak then. Like, it was an issue then. And it was an issue now with Amari Cooper. It's the fact that guy hasn't been signed to a stupid long-term deal is beyond me. It is beyond me. Whatever. It's not my team. What do I care? I got bigger issues to deal with.
Okay, so speaking of other issues, let's get through all this episode. Hey, it's the Giants game. We can skip it though if you want, Dan.
As much as what it is, it was a tale of two halves. Bears score, I think it was 17. Giants then score 13 in return. They could have won it at the end. Obviously, with Sterling Shepard having turf toe, Barkley out, we've generally seen what the splits are like for those other players. Evan Ingram is a guy, if someone is nervous, would they have him? He is a guy that you want to go and acquire. If that's the case, they've been running a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets. So Caden Smith is also a name that you want to keep an eye on too, because their wide receiver depth after Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton is CJ Board. Do anyone know who that is? No, probably not. They cut Corey Coleman this offseason. They had Austin Mack and someone else, Derek Dillon. They are bare. So they aren't, I don't think they're going to will these other guys on, especially with the loss of Saquon Barkley. Evan Ingram is a guy you should be targeting, and if you go get Ingram, find a place on your roster for Caden Smith, because that guy is made of glass.
I will say I know who CJ Board is just because I track snap counts and red zone targets and stuff like that. He played almost half as many snaps in week 2 as he did week 1. And I was like, wow, with the injuries, that's surprising. But I think it's Golden Tate coming back. That was that kind of forced him off the field more.
And Tate was useless. He really did nothing. Darnell Mooney had a good game for the Bears. Anthony Miller did too. Robinson was nothing. David Montgomery sliced. And as good as the front line of the Giants have been, obviously, Lawrence Tomlinson and Leonard Williams, they've looked pretty good. They also dropped 100 yards to Benny Snell and David Montgomery, give or take. So they can be had on the ground. So start your running backs against them every week. Feel confident. It might take a while for them to break through. And through the air, Corey Ballantyne is absolutely getting picked on. James Bradbury's looked great, but Ballantyne is absolutely getting destroyed. So you should feel confident in anyone that you play against the Giants per week. It's generally,
but in that case, it's because expect Bradbury to shadow a team's top receiver. You especially want to target number 2 wide receivers. How did Miller get nothing though in this game? Then it seemed everything was set up for him.
Fine. Darnell Mooney ended up having the touchdown. Chicago, it was a weird game to watch because it was just mistake after mistake after mistake. And then you think about it, the Giants play San Fran, who have their issues with injuries already this week. So no Barkley, no Mostert, no Coleman, probably, maybe no Kittle, no Sterling Shepard. It's just going to be a brutal game to watch.
Have fun. So Cardinals beat the Washington football team 30-15. I think we already kind of discussed, Kyler Murray and what he did. So I don't know if we need to focus on this game too much.
Cardinals look legit, and they're going to give that NFC West a good run. I love Seattle this year. I think Seattle's going to win it. But I think that West is going to be as entertaining as it is every other year.
I mean, boring Super Bowl pick, but I expect the two best quarterbacks in the league to face off in the Super Bowl, the Seahawks Chiefs. So
I like Seattle last year, and they've I get his name wrong here, but say Josh Adams. He's not a running back. Jamal Adams has looked ridiculous. He's looked amazing.
Who kept saying it? Greg Jennings in both the Packers games this weekend. He called Jamal Williams Jamal Adams both times. This week, and then they did Greg Jennings, who did the Packers game week 1. He kept calling Jamal Williams Jamal Adams.
He's on the mind. Yeah, I get Josh Adams in there for I don't know why. That's a Jets thing, I guess.
So if Greg Jennings screws up, you're also allowed to mess up like that, Dan. So don't worry.
Yeah, it's all right. What's he ever done?
So Chiefs beat the Chargers in overtime, 23-20. I think the really the biggest takeaway here is all this talk of Herbert's not going to be ready, immature. Not so much like I also heard some of that personality wise, but also like just the game wasn't mature enough, and for him, like he really needed to sit, learn the offenses, and he looked really good, better than Tyrod did against the Bengals, against a championship. Again, they won a championship because of Mahomes, but a championship caliber defense that just won a Super Bowl, and the rookie quarterback that supposedly needed time looked way better than this veteran who I'm a big fan of. Anyone who read my Going for Two article this week on DFS Yahoo, literally the only quarterback I recommended was Tyrod Taylor because they had him at minimum price. Yahoo must have known something because there was no other reason to put him at 20. I was like, this is a smash. Except, and then, get to game time. And nope, he's not playing. So sorry, anyone that I misled on that. I keep reading my articles.
But I think there's something to be said about they're two entirely different quarterbacks, and the Chiefs prepared for Tyrod. And then they get this kid in who don't get me wrong, he did a great job. I mean, the only mistake was when he could have ran for the first down and he threw the interception. That was his biggest mistake. But I think there's something to be said about a team not being prepared for the quarterback that's on the field too. I mean, there's no way Tyrod's making the throws that Justin does. He's just not that quarterback. That's not who he is. But yeah, he did a good job. And I think it's kind of bold that Lynn's saying that if Tyrod's okay, he's going to come back. There's no way he's going to be able to play him again. There's just no way.
Yeah, I agree. Because again, he looked ready to play and he almost beat the defending champ. So I don't know who you're afraid to play him against.
If I can, I think I'd be surprised if a lot of people, I don't know what his ownership is on Yahoo or anywhere else. Josh Kelly has put up 12 or 13 points back to back. So if everyone's rushing out to go get Dion Lewis or whoever, these backup running backs in ambiguous situations, Josh Kelly is doing it on his own. He's had as many carries, I think, as Austin Eckler in the same period of time. Eckler finally got the receptions that everyone was looking for. But Josh Kelly has done very good to carve out a role from the get-go. And he has looked really impressive straight away. And I think because Eckler's there and that name value with him has carried over, I think people might be a little bit touchy grabbing him, but I would much rather a guy like Josh Kelly over someone like a Giants third string running back or Mike Davis or whoever.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think
depends on who the quarterback is too, because I don't think Tyrod's going to throw to Eckler. So I think that
the first thing Herbert did was do that, and he looked.
Yeah, that's the first thing I ever did. So if Herbert, then I think Eckler goes up, but Kelly does stay. Yeah, Kelly's still. I would
because Kelly still looks like the goal line back. I mean, he's had 4 carries inside the 5 over 2 weeks. Eckler's had 0. Eckler has been in there in the red zone. 4 red zone carries, 1 red zone target in that time. But as soon as they get to the goal line inside the 5, it seems like they're turning to Kelly. So so even there will be games when the Chargers are winning that probably both Eckler and Kelly could be viable in starters. Would have been weird. I can see why you wouldn't necessarily start Kelly against the Chiefs, but I mean, if he is producing against that offense that's presumed like what offense are the Chargers scared of now, right? I mean, what game are we afraid of them getting blown out in if they kept it close against the Chiefs? So
I think as well, like for those who ended up getting Eckler early in redraft this year, this was always, it wasn't really a concern until they drafted Kelly, and obviously Justin Jackson, someone that everyone's had kind of their eye on, but he might not be the 1B just yet, but he's definitely the 1C at the moment, Josh Kelly, and you know, anything that happens in that backfield, that it's wheels up for that kid. Yeah.
So quickly get through these last. I guess there's only 2 games. Actually, there's only 1 game left. Actually 2 games. Never mind. Should get to instead of rambling. Ravens beat the Texans 33-16. The one thing I want to point out is, you know, I mean, they put up more points than the Browns, so shootout type game, but you know, considering what Andrews did in a blowout game against the Browns, you figured he would have mustered more than what it was 1 catch for 15, 20 yards. You know, so you know, talk about some great tight end performances, and unfortunately, Andrews had maybe the most disappointing fantasy performance from a tight end perspective.
So you get rid of your number 1 wide receiver. You don't make your offensive line any stronger, and you get David Johnson, who isn't exactly known for blocking. Bill O'Brien should be on that list too. Deshaun Watson's going to be running for his life the entire season, and it's going to look like this.
Yeah, I think the other thing to note, I agree 100%. However, the one thing to note is also, without all this preseason, they play the Super Bowl champs week 1, and then week 2 they get Lamar Jackson. So I think within the realm of how bad Bill O'Brien really is, which I think we all agree he is, and how bad the replacement of Hopkins was with David Johnson, it was. They also played probably, inarguably, the top 2 teams in the league right off the bat.
Next week?
Sorry?
Next week? They play the Steelers next week.
Yeah, and I
another top defense.
And I mean, to be fair, I mean, the Giants kind of had them too. Like, they were close.
I was surprised Darius Slayton went off against Joe Hayden.
Yeah, I mean, but they were close.
Assuming Slayton was mostly covered by Hayden, actually missed that game.
That's a whole other diatribe about the Steelers scoring off the back of Giants issues, whether it was the intercept by TJ Watt or the goal line intercept, whatever it may have been. However, the Giants did put up points against the Steelers. And again, it's week 1, so everything grain of salt. But the Steelers, I mean, I like them this year, and they're going to do a lot of damage in that division. And Houston's season is going to be in a lot of trouble if they go 0-3. And that's not an easy start to the year by any stretch. Imagine seeing Pat Mahomes, then Lamar Jackson, and Ben Roethlisberger, and knowing that you can see, you almost see it on Watson's face. He looks up, and he's looking for Hopkins still, and it's just not there.
It's look pretty far.
And Fuller went down, so
yeah.
He's got nothing, basically.
Yeah.
Because Brandon Cooks has not been as explosive these last 2 seasons. I think
Cooks has been fine. Cooks has been fine at Houston. Cobb and Stills have been meh. Like, the 2 touchdowns I think they've scored has been Jordan Akins and Darren Fells. And maybe David Johnson.
David Johnson may win in too, but
his passing touchdowns is Fells and Akins. And that's happening to him. Like, and it ain't pretty either. Like, they're in all sorts of trouble now. Those picks mean nothing. Like, who cares what you acquire? That's the best receiver in the game. Brandon Cooks isn't that guy. Neither is Randall Cobb. You can't just replace that.
I will say they've run 8 plays in the red zone in 2 weeks. That's not very good. They're clearly not getting into scoring zones to where they've only scored 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks, and you do expect more from Deshaun Watson, really, and an offense led by him. But
he should be better. He should be better. In the back of his mind, he's probably sitting there going, "Ah, oh, God, not again." Like that would be in his head. He's looking up and he's like, "No."
All right,
he's taken the snap and he's looked at Johnson. He's like, "No." He's like, poor guy.
Bad offensive line. Where are they in the ranks? Anyway, week 1 ranks only. So Sunday Night Football: Seattle Seahawks 35, New England Patriots 30. Came down to the wire. and the Seahawks go 2-0 quickly. One thing I'll say about Cam Newton with the Patriots, we saw this with Carolina. I kind of mentioned it going into the season. He will the targets will be very heavily skewed toward just a select few group of players. Julian Edelman, 11 targets. N'Keal Harry, 12 targets. Demaria Byrd, 9 targets. And he only threw 44 pass attempts. Not like he threw 60 times. That's more than half of the pass attempts just to those 3 players. So Harry wasn't nearly as efficient. 8 catches for 72 yards. Edelman, 8 catches for 179 yards. Quite a strange efficiency. But I think for anyone panicking after Edelman's poor week 1 and seeing him questionable entering the game, clearly he's one of Cam's top 2 targets and is going to continue to be that way. Anyone else get blindsided by James White not playing?
No.
I mean, that's
because I actually got stuck in a lineup where it's on Reality Sports Online, and you cannot cut players after they've played. I literally had James White at 8:30. Everyone else had played, so he got stuck as a 0 in my lineup because I couldn't take him out and I couldn't replace him. I could have dropped him, but
the circumstances like that. I think just walk away, Kyle. Just let it go, mate. That's just that how poor guy. Best wishes to him. That's terrifying. But
definitely going to not have James White ranked anywhere high anymore because that's not something we had seen earlier. Like in years prior, he'd always be unless he was hurt, he's always playing. So it was strange to see because it was an injury, right? They just healthy scratch.
No. You don't know what happened?
His dad died in a car crash. That's why White wasn't there.
Oh, okay. So now I seem like a real asshole. Yeah. Okay.
It's a chipper during that. I thought, he's going with it. He doesn't know.
Walk away.
Yeah, no. I was just like, you got to let.
Okay, so never mind. Continue to keep playing James White every week. Yeah, no, I actually did not hear that at all. I was in the.
Yeah, no. His father unfortunately passed away. They kept repeating it. His mother, I know, was in a critical condition. I don't know how she is, but he basically he travelled with the team, and he didn't go. So.
And he had to fly back. Yeah.
Yes, sad news.
Yeah, okay.
Take the 0 call.
We're going to talk about the Monday night game now because we're almost there.
Okay.
Raiders and Steelers. Or Saints. Steelers were last week.
Yeah. Saints at Las Vegas. There we go.
It would have been so much better if they had a crowd there in that new stadium. It would have been so much better. I would have given the Raiders an edge if they had a crowd. I would have said
probably it might not have been 5.5 to be honest. Vegas probably would have done the same, Gladys.
Yeah, but now no, there's no way. Carr's gonna have to go short. It's gonna have to go Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, maybe Renfro, but I don't see Vegas's defense being able to stop even with Michael Thomas gone. I don't see them stopping Kamara. I don't see them stopping Emmanuel Sanders. I don't see them stopping what is their tight end? Who's their tight end?
Jared Cook.
Thank you. I don't see them stopping Jared Cook. Yeah. So I'm going, unfortunately, Saints by a touchdown or maybe 2.
Okay,
so you like the Saints line, and it's so Dan, you updated this. It's now 4.5, so it's actually gone down even more.
In the past, 24 hours went to 4.5, which was weird. But that would be the Michael Thomas bump. I will say that I think it was mybookie.com. They had 56.5 yards rushing for Kamara, which I thought was a bit of a gimme. And they also had Josh Jacobs over 19.5 reception yards, which if this game goes the way we think, that should also be a gimme. And
he saw 6 targets last week in a game where they were winning. So
unless they think that he's just going to catch it and get stuffed every time, that's that. But again, as I said, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns to Christian McCaffrey, and they now get Alvin Kamara. So I don't know why anyone would be saying the Vegas defense can stop the run. They probably won't. I understand McCaffrey's an animal, but so is Alvin Kamara. I think it's going to be an Alvin Kamara field day. And his price in every format of fantasy football is going up after tonight.
Well, yeah, especially with Barkley injured, McCaffrey out. I mean, you're going to come into weeks and maybe think Kamara's the RB1 this week entering the week. And so
Derrick Henry didn't look invincible against the Jaguars. Dalvin Cook's in a tough spot at Minnesota. He's either going to be ridiculous or not. Eckler, Mixon, Sanders, Drake.
I would say, if anyone, it might be the guy that Kamara is facing tonight, and Josh Jacobs.
And again, I had him as the number 2 ranked running back last week in week 1 matchups. I think I have him outside the top 12 this week. But I also have Kamara number 1 this week. And that's probably
the correlation there, yeah.
Yeah.
So you also think you're taking the Saints over on the 4.5 then?
I would, again, normally I am a big advocate of home underdogs and the under. I kind of feel a bit more vindicated with that with Thomas not playing. I am okay with taking the Raiders at 4.5, but also under 48.5 as well. But yeah, the Saints in real life, not on the gambling punt, I would say the Saints should be rolling this one, and I don't think that should be an issue. Derek Carr doesn't turn the ball over that much either, so he's always a safe play. But again, you're asking a guy like Carr who's probably going to have to chase the Saints to put up over 300 yards, and I'm not buying it.
True. We'll say, with terms of picking the under on the total of this game, if it does turn out both teams actually just want to run the football, less plays run, that could be a scenario to go with the under.
Again, like if you're hoping Traquan Smith, Emmanuel Sanders do more, that's fine. I would feel comfortable with that with them both slogging it out.
So Eric Vincent has a question for us, and I mean we're not clairvoyant, so we can't actually give you our answer. Down by 5, they have Darren Waller and the Saints defense. Wow. So, I mean, like Dan said, Derek Carr doesn't turn the ball over. I don't know that the Saints defense are necessarily going to put up a ton of fantasy points this week because, again, Josh Jacobs could be a difference maker. A guy like Darren Waller, I don't know that the Saints necessarily have someone that can cover him. Right. I know I had Darren Waller ranked as my number 3 tight end entering this week, and my number 2 tight end, Mark Andrews, completely disappointed. So who knows?
Yeah.
Remember, I don't know if that's a great sign for you, Eric, but I think Darren Waller is going to have an amazing week this week. He's probably the best weapon. He's going to see a ton of targets, I think. And
OJ Howard scored a touchdown against the Saints week 1, but on the flip side, Brady had a pick 6, 2 intercepts, and was sacked 3 times with a fumble. So different teams. Howard still got the strike though, so you never know.
Much better offensive line, I will say, for the Raiders than the Buccaneers.
I think if the Raiders are down and Carr starts panicking and he tries to go to Ruggs, and if Ruggs is covered by Lattimore, that the Saints will score more points than because I don't think the rookie is going to have a good day if Lattimore is actually shadowing him.
And I mean, Brian Edwards probably gets Janoris Jenkins, so that's not a great matchup either.
They have him for 3 receptions this game.
Brian Edwards?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the last I checked. I think it was a 3 was the line. So 3.5.
I think it's going to be closer than Eric would like it to be.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I think Waller's going to score. I mean, in a PPR, Waller's going to probably be the most targeted. Short passes. Yeah. It's
going to happen, and he's incredible after the catch as well. So
yeah,
you're as good a shot as anyone. I've seen some strange matchups this week with like Breeze up against the Saints defense, or Waller and Carr up against the Saints defense, and Will Lutz. Like I've seen some weird things.
I've got Jared Cook against Derek Carr in a matchup that's with like either one could win.
Gladys will like this for IDP. I have Abrams and Demario Davis up against Josh Jacobs. So yeah, I know, and I'm up by about 10. So. I kind of feel good because I think this is a Demario Davis game. I think he's going to rack him up. But at the same time, that's Josh Jacobs. He could do anything tonight. So we'll see.
So Eric, no fantasy advice here, but hopefully we gave you some positive vibes going into this. Because the thing with Waller, I will say, and maybe I'm adding too much positivity. He was tight end 4 or 5 last year with 3 touchdowns. So this is not a touchdown-dependent tight end. He can rack up receptions and yards, and like Dan said, great after the catch. So
Waller was the tight end 3 with 3 touchdowns. Without those touchdowns and receptions with them, he would have been the tight end 6 ahead of Austin Hooper in the season. So he was impressive no matter what. So I don't see the targets. If you feel like he's going to get 8, 9 targets, 10 targets, 7 receptions, and 80 yards, you're hoping for that touchdown to get you over, because I'm not sure the Saints D is going to do you any favors this week.
All right. So I think hopefully we did some favors and talked about all this, giving some, I guess, pretty sound waiver advice. Don't spend 42% of your budget on Peyton Barber.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Don't play Kirk Cousins over Ryan Tannehill and Scott Fishbowl.
Yeah, we make all the mistakes so that you don't have to.
Exactly.
Also, shout out to Going for Two. Clutch arrival with this shirt today. I was hoping I'd get it for the episode, so you can definitely check out the Going for Two store. I'm sure Jeff will appreciate that. But yeah, it's actually really comfortable. So I'm someone who's all about feel. Looks important too, and it does look great, but it feels great. So definitely enjoy wearing the shirt, and you will all too if you order it. So, but if not, still appreciate you coming in, listening, viewing.
I'm sure Jeff has sent ours in the mail already.
Oh yeah, sure. But Gladys, Dan, appreciate speaking with both of you.
I appreciate you guys too very much. Thank you.
See you guys next week. This will be fun.
Hopefully this is a great way for everyone to end the week, just before the very last football moment of the week, Monday Night Football, and here we are. So
who's Monday next week? Monday next week. Who we got?
I have no idea. Next Monday.
Yep. There we go. We don't have all the answers, apparently.
Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens. Ooh.
Chiefs Ravens.
So yeah, we got a big one. Don't even worry about the recap. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we'll mostly preview. Well, to be fair, there's probably a lot of fancy matchups next week that are going to come down to that. As we talked about a few here. Oh, Darren Waller versus
all of them.
Yeah. So again, enjoy your Monday night here, and
everyone.
We look forward to.
See you next week.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.